All right, greetings, Python fans. Today we're going to be talking about a few things, but the most important thing we're talking about is conditionals. That's a big topic. It's pretty big in programming. It's effectively what you do to make a decision. Whenever you write software, you're always having to make a decision. The primary logic that is used to make a conditional statement is the if, then, or else logic. And so we're going to talk about how Python gets that accomplished. And so this is a pretty critical moment because anytime you start to write software, you always have to evaluate parameters or variables and to make a decision based on those. So we're going to be diving into that. It's the decision-making process that we call a conditional. Now, before I dive into conditionals, there's a couple of language things we have to figure out. First off, expression. So we have this thing called an expression and a statement. Now these seem very related, but let me explain the difference. So a statement executes on its own, which means if I write a Python statement and I run that statement will run. And a statement can be one single sentence, or the statement can be a block of things. But the point is that when you run a statement, the statement executes. There'll be produced no errors. A statement will almost always have as a part of it expressions. So you'll find an expression is contained. An expression is contained in a statement. So, but very important about expressions. So expressions are evaluated. So when I type an expression, it gets evaluated and equated to a value. Most of the time, an expression gets equated to a true false value. And there's other things that it could be equated to. But an expression gets equated to a true false value or some other value. So that's important to note. So when you're writing a statement, you will have one or more expressions in that statement that get evaluated based on true or false. And this is where the if-then gets involved. So if you were to take the if-then statement, we will call this a block. So a statement can be a block, meaning multiple lines that make up the statement. So usually an if-then block would look something like this. If, and then you'll put in, and this is not what you actually type, but you'll type an expression here. And we're gonna talk about what those expressions are. But if the expression is true, then we're gonna perform some statement. Right? So that's basically what we're saying. So if the expression is true, then we're gonna perform some statement. And then else, if it's not then expression, then we will perform some other statement, right? So this is basically what an if-then block might look like. And so we're going to go ahead and go through that today, walking you through how to create that block, that statement block with expressions and statements. Keep in mind, this entire block itself is a statement, and there are statements included in here. So there we go. So that's what I hope to accomplish. We will be introducing some new operators. So you'll remember these. And very important, I've introduced to you the simple operators of subtraction, addition, division, multiplication. You've also learned a very important one. And now what is this? This is not the equal sign. This is what we call the assignment operator. This basically assigns a value. And what you've been doing up to this point is you've taken a variable and assigned the variable a value. So now you're going to learn some new ones. This is actually the equals. So you're going to learn that one. This one is the not equal. So this is not equal. And then you have greater than. And then you have less than. Right? So, and there's a couple of others, but these are the basic operators we'll deal with in our if-then statement. Okay? Now, before we move on, I'm going to minimize this, and what I want you to do is we're going to, before I open up a program, start writing a Python program, I'm going to open up the idle program. So in your Python came with a shell that's called idle. And so I'm going to open that up now. So, and I've just, as you see, I've been experimenting here, and I'd like you to do the same. So we're going to experiment by typing some basic math in here, just so you can experiment or see how the operators work. So, for example, 5 is equal to 5, right? That didn't work. Notice that equal is the assignment operator. So that did not work, and this is really critical. But if I were to do 5 equal 5, then I get back a true, right? Notice the difference. 1 is not assigned to 2. That gets me an error. But 1 equal 2, that will produce a false because 1 is not equal to 2. Whereas 2 equal is equal to 2, right? Now you can get a little tricky with this. So I can say 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2, and I get a true back, right? Because that is an equation. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and that is equal to 2. So see, you can experiment with this. So we can say, well, 10 is greater than 1, and that is true. But 1 is not greater than 10. I should get a false, right? So you can also say 100 is less than 1,000, and I should get a true. But 1,000 is not less than 100, and I'll get a false, right? So this shows you how these operators work. Now, you can also do 10 is not equal to 10 and see what you get. You get a false. But if I were to say 10 is not equal to 100, I'll get a true. Now, this is probably better with equations. So if I did 5 times 2, and I said that is not equal to 10 times 10, I should get a true, because 5 times 2 is 10, and 10 times 10 is 100, and therefore they are not true. So these are better with expressions. I mean, they're better with equations. But you can now see how you can put these in here. By the way, there is also the less than or equal to a certain number. Like I could say 21 is greater than or equal to 20, and that is true. Whereas 21 is not greater than or equal to 19. And that is, it is greater than, I'm sorry. 21 is greater than or equal to 30. And that is false, right? So you can see how you can play with these operators. And I recommend that you take a few minutes after this video, or pause right now, and try this. Try the different operators and see what you come up with. Use the equal, use the bang equal sign, use the greater than or less than sign, and experiment with doing basic math functions here to see if they work. I think you need to understand how they work, and the only really way to do it is to play with them here in the show. All right, having said that, now let's move on to developing a software program that will actually take input and make decisions on that input using an if-then. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to save it as, and I want to save it, I'll just call this age check 2, because I'd already, I made a mistake. I did that again. I got to make sure I put a .py at the end of the file there. Oops. All right, so I have an age check 2.py file. I had already created one called age check messing around before this video. So I'm now going to call it age check 2.py. So I want to basically create a program that will check your age, and based on your age, give you different content. All right, so that's an easy thing to do, and I've seen this example done 100 times online, so it's something that you could Google around and find information on as well. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take input from the user. So I might want to take the input of their name, and I may want to take their age, and then I want to do something with their age and print out different messages based on how old they are. So first off, I'll take name. Now I'm going to introduce this concept of, instead of calling the variable name, I'm going to call the variable with an input. And the reason why is the exercise we did last week, you learned that, or the last assignment I posted, one of the things you were challenged with is sometimes when the input command takes it in as a string, you may have to make it a number later. So we may actually have to create another variable based on the input. So I always like to add input to these. so that I know that these were inputted by the user, and therefore I can then manipulate them with another variable at a later point. And you're going to see a demonstration of that here in a minute. So name input, and we'll say that is going to be equal to the input function, and the parameter I'm going to ask for is the name. So in a string, I'm going to say, what is your name? Now, we learned that it's probably a good idea for me to put a space after that, so it just looks cleaner on the screen. So now I have, what is your name? And I would also like to get their age. I'm going to go age input, and I'll say that is equal to the input parameter. And I'm going to provide, what is your age? And I will put a space just so that I have that extra space when I ask the question. Now, because you're becoming experienced Python programmers, you now know that that is going to produce an input from the keyboard. What the user types in will become then a part of that variable, will become assigned to that variable, and it'll be assigned as a string. So you've learned a lot. Now, let's use our if statement. And by the way, notice I'm creating space between these. It's always a good idea to create space between your variables and your blocks or your statement blocks. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm creating some space. Python is really great about space. It's easy to read. Space does not cause you problems. It does not give you errors when you run the code. So you should use space appropriately. Now, let's talk about the if statement. So if is really simple. I simply type the word if. And now I say if, and here I can do age underscore input. So if the age input is greater than 18, then I can do a semicolon. So this is how you build the expression. So this is the expression I was telling you about. So if age input is greater than 18. So the age input is greater than 18 is the expression. That will not run on its own. That requires a statement to follow it. And because it's a statement that is included in this after the colon, Python wants you to create an indentation. The indentation says that this is part of that code. Now, this is a very important distinction. Python is probably the only language I know that does this. Other languages require you to put things in curly brackets or different types of brackets. It requires you to create this block of code together with some sort of bracket. But that makes the code very illegible and difficult to follow. Python actually uses spaces. Now, the space you put underneath this if could be a double space, it could be a tab, it could be 5 spaces, it could be 10 spaces. It doesn't matter. That's the cool thing about Python. Now, if you go Googling out there, you'll find all sorts of purists. Python purists that believe absolutely it's got to be a tab. And then there's other Python purists that believe absolutely it's got to be 2 spaces. It doesn't matter as long as you are consistent. Consistency is what's important here. So now that I've tabbed in, and notice that because I'm using Sublime, Sublime automatically tabbed in for me, recognizing this was an if statement. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my print function. So if the age input is greater than 18, then I'm going to go ahead and give them something, right? So I'm going to say name input. So I'm going to call them by their first name, comma, and that was, if you'll remember from previous classes, the name input, comma, that is one of the print function has many operators or parameters, and you're going to see that name input is the first parameter, right, comma, and now I'm going to put the second parameter, which is going to be a string of text. Welcome, so name, welcome, name, welcome. You are old enough to get this message. Woohoo! Right? So there we go. So if the age is greater than 18, then do that. Right? Now, I have to go back a space because now I have to put in the next statement. So at the same level if was, I'm going to say else. So if the age was greater than 18, print this, else, right? So otherwise, I want you to do another statement. I'm going to tab in here, and I'm going to print, and I'll say, well, let's just do first parameter, I am sorry, comma, giving it my second parameter now, and here I can put name input, right? So I am sorry, insert name here. Okay, now I'm going to add a third parameter. You are too young for this message. All right, well, there you go. So there you go. That's pretty much it. So notice what I've done. I've taken input from the user, both a name and an age, and I've taken their age and I've made it. I've said if their age is greater than 18, then print one message. Otherwise, print another message. And that's how you use if-else logic. Let's see if this works. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work. And you might see in the code a reason why. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to both help people that may have struggled with the last week's lesson, but I also want to get you into the mindset so you understand how to deal with data types that are naturally guessed upon by Python. So we're going to go ahead and go Python. By the way, I am in the directory where this file is located. So Python age check2.py. And, oh, wait a minute. I've got a problem. An unexpected problem. Let's take a minute and see where I messed up, okay? Let's read the error. So it says else, and then there's a little caret sign underneath the E. That means that's where it discovered the error. So in line 6, so notice how Sublime numbers the lines. So in line number 6, right after this E, there's something wrong, and it's telling me I have an invalid syntax. So something went wrong right here. And I can tell you immediately what that is. I forgot the semicolon after the expression. So I got to go fix that. So I'm going to put a semicolon there, and I'm going to save that. And I'll ignore my "you're using Sublime for free and you need to pay for it" message. And then I will go over here, and I will run Python age check2.py. And, oh, now it's asking me, what is my name? Guy. What is your age? Should I be older or younger? I'll be 18. No, I'll be 19 because I'll be greater than 18. Oh, I get an error. What is the error that I'm getting? So it says file age check line 4. So I'm on line 4, if age input. This is the line I'm at, that expression. And it's telling me unorderable type, string to integer. Oh, that's what's happening. It got input as a string, and I'm trying to compare it to an integer. Yeah, see, there's where that problem comes in that we've been discussing. So what I have to do is I have to fix that now in my code. So we're going to go ahead and fix that now, right? So how do we fix that? Well, that's pretty easy. We gotta go up here, and we got to convert age input into an integer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the variable called age, and I'm going to make that equal to the integer of age underscore input, right? So now that converts age input into an integer, right? That should be pretty easy to understand. And if you're paying attention, that helps you understand the problem that I gave you last week. So now, if age input, that is not the variable I want to use. Now I want to use the variable age, right? So if age is greater than 18, then I can go ahead and perform this code. All right, so I'm going to save this, and let's see if that was good enough to solve my problem. I'm trying to help you troubleshoot as we go. So page age check2.py. What is your name? Guy. What is your age? Let's go to the 19. Guy, welcome. You are old enough to get this message. Woohoo! All right, let's try it again. And let me do a 17 below that number. Oh, I messed up. Well, my name is now 17, and my age is 17. Let's do that again. I messed up. So let's go with I'll do Guy. And what is your age? 17. You are too young. All right, so I know my program works. Now, I have an interesting idea. What happens if I put a letter in there? What is my age? I'm A. That's not going to work because, once again, what's happening? I'm converting the string to an integer, and then I'm comparing the integer to. So in order to stop this, you would have to do some error checking, right? You would have to find out if the person enters a character of some sort, what am I going to do about it, right? So that's the question, and I'm not going to answer that for you. I'm going to make you try to figure that out on your own in our assignment this week. And we'll deal with it next week. But I think that's an interesting thing to research. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. So let's go ahead but let's see what happens if I say I'm Guy and I say my name is 18. It says I'm too young because notice that I had greater than 18. So what I could do is do greater than or equal to 18, right? So let's see what happens when I do that. So file, save, and now I'm going to go here, age check and guy, and let's see what happens when I type 18 now. Now I'm old enough, right? See, because I'm doing greater than or equal to, which is the appropriate operand there. So pretty neat, right? So we can do all sorts of stuff in here. You can do equal. So if age is equal to 18. Now what will happen if I save this? The only thing that will work to get the old message is if you're 18, right? So if I run this and I say guy, and now if I type 19, it's not going to work, right? So I have to actually type 18 to be exact, right? So that shows you what happens when you do this. So I want greater than or equals to 18. That's the appropriate way to do it there. So you get the idea how you can type in different operands to produce different results, right? Just remind you here about the Python input blocks here and how important they are. Notice the blocks require a tab and space in order to produce that result. Now, what I'm going to have you do this week as your assignment, and this is going to be hard, I'm going to have you take input from the user to determine what grade of school they're in. And based on their response, I'm going to have you give them a math problem. And then based on that response, I'm going to have you check the math problem. And then I'm going to have you give them a good message if they were to successfully complete the math problem, or a bad message if they didn't. Now, this will get a little tricky, especially with the comparison thing. But I'm not going to answer the comparison. I'm going to try to let you figure that out. What I will do is during the week, I'll give you some hints over email about the comparison thing. So, but for now, I want to see if you can squirm away and figure it out. So write me a program on a little math program. We'll call it the Common Core app, and you can check the math level of the person and then give them an appropriate math question. All right, so that's what we're going to do this week, and I will see you soon. Bye.